good day to stay on. Now's your chance. Arsenal City!
Hello and welcome back to episode number 52 of the TNC podcast. We've got a guest and it's a very good one. He's brought the sun from North Wales.
A big one.
It's the legend that is Owain Tudur Jones. How are you, my friend?
Very good, thank you, boys. Thanks for the invite.
Well, thanks so much for coming down. I think you've broke a record for the most miles covered to get here.
It's dedication, isn't it?
Banger.
By the way, very on time.
Yeah.
Always nice to see. Mm-hmm. Very on time. We've had a few shockingly late guests.
Mm-hmm.
Shockingly late guests.
But it's often the former Norwich players and the current Norwich players that are often on time.
Well,
so
there you go.
There's something to say about that. How are you, first of all? How has it been going?
Really good, actually. It's always nice to be back in Norwich, if I'm perfectly honest. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into my time at the club and how it wasn't brilliant for me on the pitch, but off the pitch it was great. Made some good friends, so it's always good to catch up.
What is it about Norwich? Because you often see with players who, finish their careers here and stay here, go away, come back, then sort of live here permanently. There's something about this city that grabs onto people, isn't there?
There is. I think generally it seems to be the lads who are genuine club legends, who, it's a unique part of the world. People's perception of Norwich before coming here, I think people think of it as maybe some backwards village with nothing here at all. And I think when you get here, it's a big surprise.
Yeah.
It's a lovely city. It's a good night out, which is very important. And then you have the adulation that these lads get from Carrow Road. If you do well, the fans love you, and it's a one club city. It just means that even after they retire, they can still get a little bit of that adulation.
Where did you go out in Norwich?
Well, Mercy was the end of the night. I don't think Mercy's there anymore, is it?
Mercy's still there.
It's just here. It's had some troublesome times.
Okay,
not that we need to talk about business.
No. Where do we used to go? Just a mixed bag, really. It's all changed now. I've been out a couple of times in the last couple of years. Just anywhere, really.
You struck me as a bit of a barman rather than a clubber.
Oh, you're spot on there.
Yeah.
Spot on. I mean, we had quite a lot of success in that 2-year spell that I was here. It means that the nights didn't finish at the bars. We did then make the journey to the clubs, but I always felt more at home in bars, even the wine bars where you can sit down, you can have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a boring way, but you can talk, you can have that laugh with the lads. Whereas going to the club, that was more for the pretty boys who were on the hunt.
I don't want to put you in a bad place straight away, but I was listening on your podcast, the Long Man's World Football podcast. Brilliant, by the way. Forbesy's been on there, Hucks, McVeigh, Gunny. You were talking with Forbesy. You said Swansea was a better night out than Norwich. Are you sticking by that?
I bet you it is.
They were his words.
Were they? But I think
I
might have
probably
agreed
with him.
Yeah.
It's I could talk all night. I love going out in Norwich. It's a great night out. Swansea's just a level above because of the structure. You have this one street, and when it's like weather like this on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, it is packed. It's like being abroad. It's just a little bit different to anything else in the UK.
I like it, the structure of it. Chris, how are you, by the way?
Splendid.
I mean, we haven't recorded a podcast in this heat since Russ. We know how that ended with the sweat patches. I hope Owain handles things a bit better. Grey t-shirt, dangerous.
I know. Keeping my pits closed.
It is getting very warm in here already.
I mean, I just need to bring up straight away, actually, completely off topic, England.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
That's not why I'm worried about it.
Yeah, you said that if we wore England tops, but you're very kind of on trend for England, so...
I don't mind it. It's back home in Wales, so many people hate England.
Yeah,
they
do, don't they?
It's not so much the players and what goes on the pitch, it's what happens off it. And I think you two, from what I've seen on social media, you're probably a part of why the Welsh hate the English. Just obviously you get excited, you get into the spirit of things, and then you have the press who just get overly excited, and then if things go wrong.
What's your take on the Welsh players celebrating England going out to Iceland and that video coming out on Twitter? Is that something that you would have done in the Welsh national team?
Yeah, I would have been right in amongst it. And again, it's not because I hate England. It's a bit of a team bonding thing. Should it have been released? No. Obviously, it was done by accident. It doesn't reflect brilliantly, and it's almost a stick to beat the players with. People then want them to get knocked out, whereas maybe the English fans before that wanted them to do well.
Yeah.
But it's just, you ask any of those players, they play with a lot of the England
absolutely,
setter,
absolutely.
They're friends with a lot of them. it's just this media hype.
Yeah.
That they got.
Well, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great little bit of banter, and I'm sure Norwich players would do the same thing if Ipswich lose a game. They'd probably go. Oh.
It's good to see the human side of them, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It doesn't sound like you think it's coming home though.
It could. I think they'll do well.
We go.
I don't think it's coming home, but I don't think it's going to be. What happens in the Belgium game, I don't know. It's going to be a tough game. I can actually see England beating Belgium and Belgium going further in the competition.
Yeah.
But in terms of who they're going to play in the next round, it's a good group to be up against. Whoever they'll end up playing, it's a good route if you want to get to the quarterfinals and beyond. I can actually see them maybe getting to the semi-finals, but maybe that'll be it.
We'll take that.
That's a big deal.
Let's get away from England and let's get onto your career. It's an interesting one. People wanted you on here. They clearly wanted to hear your story. I think we were on the scrimmage a few weeks ago.
I was, yeah.
So you're doing your local media rounds now. Going through Porthmadog, is that?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
I mean, my mum is Welsh.
I was going to say,
I've got Welsh in me.
Yeah.
That's a terrible pronunciation, though. I think she was actually texting all of her family saying, like, Owain's
Just say Port.
Yeah.
Porthmadog is how you actually say
There we go. Bangor City, Swansea, Swindon, and then this is the big one, Norwich City. That's quite a leap, isn't it? I suppose, from Swindon on loan, Swansea, Norwich City, League One, one of the favourites to go back into the Championship. Big move.
It was a big move. It was seen as a bigger club than Swansea, but Swansea were in the Championship at the time. So 2009, I was part of the Swansea squad, first season in the Championship, which was the season Norwich were relegated.
Yeah.
So really successful first season for Swansea, and they were looking to kick on. I was offered an extension on my contract, but it was time to leave. Sample something new, and I guess I was seen as one of many players that had a little bit of experience in League One for that rebuild, that restructure that the club needed at the time. And it didn't go to plan for me personally, but being part of that squad, it was great. And what was different was the training facilities. Even though Swansea were a club in a higher division, the facilities on a different level at the time. Not anymore. I've been to the Swansea training ground recently. And it's scary. Really. My wages were increased, even though I was dropping down the league. So it was a good move for me at that time.
It was a good move, but I suppose it was a slightly risky move as well. Swansea on the up, Norwich arguably, well, they were on their way down. The restructuring, it could have gone all wrong.
It could have gone wrong, but it was. I said I was offered an extension at Swansea. I knew it was time to leave because I had a real good relationship with the fans there. Going from the Welsh Premier League, which is non-league, with Bangor, to signing for Swansea, even though they're 4 hours apart, I was almost seen as one of their own, a Welshman. Good relationship. They had a couple of songs for me, but by the fourth,
what were the songs?
We'll get into that after. Had my breakthrough season with them. Seasons 2 and 3, just injuries. Had a couple of surgeries on my knee, and by the time I'd come back, Roberto Martinez had transformed the team, and the boys had moved. They'd moved to a different level. So I was playing catch up. The relationship with the fans was starting to turn, because there's always a scapegoat in a team. And I just felt that it was starting to be me. So jumped at the chance to leave, really.
Chris, what are your sort of memories of this time? Because it was a real up and down period for Norwich City, wasn't it? And lots of players coming in, lots of players going out, not much kind of settlement at the club. What are your kind of memories that jump out of that time?
For me personally, it was probably a lot more difficult than most people, because Gunny being a good mate of my family, I really, really struggled with the whole situation. It was a hell of a lot of pressure. So Angus being in goal this year, times that by 25, because Gunny's in charge. That's a big deal. And I was concerned, and I was very, very stressed, and I was very, very disappointed that he went out the way he did go out. I thought that the way he was sacked was disgusting. Even though obviously we went on to do great things with Lambert, very, very grateful for that. But just found it, incredibly challenging, that period of time. But it has shaped me for this new period now, which is actually, it hasn't been as rocky as it was when Owain was here in League One. I'm sure we need to now talk about the 7-1, of course. But Michael Theoklitos in that gang of players, or we won't go into that too much, but it was very, very difficult, I think, for me personally. But I think a lot of Norwich fans will look on it in quite fond memories, actually, because we tonked a lot of teams. And I think we really, I think we actually got the fans back on side. I think they took, obviously, a massive gamble on Holty. That is probably the best gamble this club has ever done in the history of the club. But it was okay. It was just a wee bit challenging for me.
What you had, Jack, is probably the transformation where they found that the club had become that championship club where the fans maybe didn't quite have the affinity with the players. That relationship was a little bit fractured, and the players that they brought in, maybe ability-wise, we weren't as talented as what had been previously, but that togetherness is on top of having ability, of course. I think that's what maybe brought the relationship back. And
you're, probably one of the best people to speak about this. How much do you think that togetherness counts towards getting results on the pitch in comparison to having that raw ability? Do you think that togetherness is almost more important?
I think it's huge, but it depends who you talk to. You hear these experts who have played at the top level, and they say you don't have to be friends, you don't even have to like each other. But I think it helps. Yeah. It helps loads. Now, if you've got 25 lads in a dressing room, not everyone is going to be close mates, but that group were close. You had little pockets who were closer than others. You had your little coffee groups and people who'd go on nights out.
Who's in the coffee group? I bet you were in the coffee group, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in amongst it.
Coffee. What's your coffee, by the way?
I'll have anything. I like black Americano. But,
strong.
Double espresso on the way here, just to get here for you guys.
Good boy.
I've got the receipt. I've got the receipt, so I'll get my expenses back, will I?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Not petrol
though. One of my best mates in football, one of my best mates in general, Gilly, who's still at the club. He was in the coffee school.
He looks like a coffee man.
Yeah, only when Beth and his wife was living in Edinburgh at the time. She was finishing college, and I lived with Gilly for a little spell. When she came back, he wasn't allowed out as often. But Big Nels, Holty, Stephen Hughes, Laps, loads.
Stephen Hughes, there's a name I've not heard in years.
Yeah. But it was a tight group, and obviously success means you can enjoy your night out a little bit more. There's a bit more adulation for the boys on a night out, which feeds their egos. It was a good time.
Let's not forget though, Chris, you mentioned it there, you've got your coffee groups, your wages have gone up, you're in a lovely city, you walk out on your debut, crushed 7-1 by Colchester. You must be thinking, what is going on here?
Yeah, it was, nobody saw it coming, honestly. The pre-season that we had was a good one, and I think it goes to show that it doesn't matter what you do in pre-season. If your team's losing every week, don't worry about it too much. But we'd beaten Wigan, who were in the Premier League. Roberto was managing them. We'd had a 1-1 draw with Man United, and Man United 11, beating Crystal Palace away. So you're thinking, I think we got a little bit too cocky. Not even at the time. Probably it's not as if I would have sat there thinking, this is going to be easy. But something subconsciously, maybe we did think that Colchester at home was going to be an easy ride. And it proved to be a little bit different.
But it wasn't just a defeat, was it? It was almost it was a capitulation. Mentally, it must have been challenging as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably something that still hasn't left me. I still think about it every now and then.
Good.
Wakes you up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I hope it does, Owain. I hope it does.
I'm sorry, but I don't know. I'd be surprised if any of the players at the time had been through something quite like that. I mean, we've all been beaten before, beaten comfortably probably loads of times. But to be beaten 7-1 on your debut at home in front of 26,000, it was different. It really was.
It was different. I like that.
And then afterwards, I remember being in the dressing room, and you could hear the fans outside gathering, and I don't know if they were chanting for Gunny to be sacked or Delia was getting some stick as well. A bit of both.
That's every season,
no doubt. It was incredible. But being on the pitch, I think, because I spoke to Gunny on the podcast about it recently, and the way he remembered was the first 10 minutes we were doing okay. We were in the game. And then all of a sudden 5-0 down at half time, just scary, really scary. So it's not something that I carry. I'm only messing. It doesn't affect me that much, but it's a memory that'll be there forever. And it's always nice to be reminded of it. Thanks, boys.
No problem. So speaking of Gunny, I tapped him up on Twitter, as I do before I have famous guests on, and I say to him, look, come on, Owain's on, give me the gossip. And he just says, I'm just going to read it just to be transparent with you guys watching and listening. He's long. Ask him about his contract, League One / Championship wage, and a made-up Premier League wage. Laughing emoji. Great footballer. Shame about the injuries.
Oh. Well, first of all,
contract. Talk to me.
First of all, I'd like to thank my agent at the time for putting in writing something that didn't seem possible at the time, and I guess that's why.
Is this an exclusive?
No, I'm quite open about it.
We're calling it an exclusive.
Yeah, let's call it an exclusive.
Lovely.
The real story, I remember meeting Gunny in Cambridge. I think I was the second signing behind Gilly. Nels was the third, so we were the three amigos. And basically what I had in my contract, so I said I had a wage increase at Swansea.
Right.
I was on less money than I probably deserved at the time, having come from non-league. So I came to Swansea on what I felt I deserved this wage at this level of football. And it was put in that if we were promoted to the Championship, that my money more or less doubled.
Wow.
So, beautiful. And it didn't matter how many times I played.
Okay.
So that was nice.
Perfect, yeah.
And then the second season, 3-year contract, same deal really. So by the second season, if they'd been promoted to the Championship in the first, then my money would not double, but it'd big bump up again, regardless of games played. So,
and this was under David McNally, of course.
No, it wasn't under McNally.
No,
he came in a little bit later. I think he was left.
Doncaster.
He was
Neil Doncaster.
No, it wasn't Doncaster. He'd left. It was what's his name?
Where are you?
He was the secretary at the time.
What year are you in?
2009. This was. I think Neil Doncaster had just left. We didn't deal with him. No. Anyway, Gunny would tell you. I forget. McNally would have come in and he would have been scratching his head, and we had some trouble towards the end where he wanted me out of the club.
Really? It was funny.
Yeah.
It's funny how David wanted you out of the club, isn't it? He wants quite a lot of people out of the club.
That's strange, isn't it? But yeah, listen, I came to the club thinking I deserve to be on a little bit more money. I left thinking I'm on a little bit more than I should be. Just found it
levels out.
It maybe levels out. But yeah, what it did actually is made me a supporter. I'm quite a chilled character generally. Football is in my blood, obviously, but in terms of a football supporter, I can never quite get into the mindset of a supporter by the end of that second season. Because I'd been going on loan, Yeovil, went to Brentford, and I saw when I was at Brentford that something was happening. There was going to be another promotion. I wanted to get involved. So Paul Lambert, in fairness, made sure I came back, even though things weren't going quite great for me at Brentford. Came back for the last month, 6 weeks, and joined the party basically. Do you remember the Derby game?
Do I remember the Derby game?
So 1-0 down and going into the 90th minute, yeah?
Yeah.
And then scored 2 goals. We were up in the skybox in the corner of the stadium, so the lads who weren't involved weren't on the bench. There was loads of us, it was a big squad. And the thrill that I felt then was probably what you guys feel often as fans. We were going insane. We were punching, the ceiling was coming down. Honestly, the skybox, oh my God, you've not seen a mess like it, but it was worth it.
Good, I agree.
And shows the spirit probably in the squad.
Absolutely. I mean, quick word on Paul Lambert.
In my opinion, I think he's brilliant. Honestly do. And this is coming from a guy who hardly played for him. I think to start with, he came in hard-faced, thought the club was soft, probably was, ruled with an iron fist to start with, didn't trust the players, and then once the players earned his trust, he'd get rid of the ones he didn't want around the place, and I was probably one of those to start with, and I think he probably would have sensed that I was willing to go out on loan, wasn't happy to just sit on my wages and not be involved in the squad, would leave my family to go Yeovil, to go to Brentford. And by the second season, he changed his mind about me. Maybe not as a player. I think he thought I was crap. Not quite to that extent.
Yeah.
But there was myself. Nels was playing, in and out. Gilly definitely loved Gilly. He saw the three of us and a couple of others as a huge part of the squad and a huge help to make sure that the players who were in his stand
reliable. Absolutely.
I mean, this squad though, Chris, will go down in history, won't it? I mean, you look at some of the players: Holty, Wes, Chrissy Martin, Adam Drury. Some big names in there. Owen part of that.
Gary Doherty.
Memorable squad.
Gary Doherty.
Gary Doherty.
Owen and Gary Doherty.
What a character
What
Doc
a
is.
guy! Just what a
Takes
guy!
a bit of time to really get to know the Doc and all his quirkiness and stuff.
Yeah.
Good guy, real good guy in the dressing room. He'd have his spells like, was it, which way around is it? First 6 months of the season, he'd be like a hermit. He wouldn't. He'd stay indoors. We wouldn't see him. No coffee, no beer.
Legend.
Second half of the season, he's out. He's a life and soul. But yeah, good guy, Doc.
There is some. I mean, talk about the players in this team. Of course, you've got the King of Spain in there, Johnny Absemabor. There's a name you may have not heard in a long, long time. Chrissy Martin.
Yeah, Michael Spillane is mate, and obviously Theo, the goalkeeper. What a guy he was.
So hang on. Right. We've got to talk about the mighty Theo.
Yeah.
Won't say his second name. Even though, did you know he's now changed his name?
What's he changed his name to?
He's changed his
His
name
is
to
now Michael Theo.
He's changed his name to Michael Theo, and we have a conspiracy that he's changed it so when people search his history, they don't find anything about Norwich.
Well, I've actually got it written down here. Michael Theo. Why did he change his name? Do you not know anything about it?
And what happened when he left as well?
I wouldn't have thought that Michael. He would have done it for that reason, because surely if you type Michael Theo, it's going to come up Theocritus and.
Well,
I mean?
I don't think it does. I think that's why we started the conversation.
Theo was as lovely a guy as you could ever meet.
Yeah.
Like almost bordering on too nice. Always a smile on his face with that Australian accent. Lovely, lovely fellow. Had an unbelievable missus. Punching well above his weight. Maybe that's where his focus went on that first day of the season. He was looking for her in the crowd.
Yeah, she was in the NMP, I reckon, at that time.
But he was a great guy. And it's a shame how it went down. Obviously, he's a good goalkeeper over in Australia, had been before and was afterwards. Just that one day, he had an absolute nightmare. And it was a shame, the way Paul Lambert came in then, wanted to bring his own players in. Saw Theo as the type of guy, wages-wise, we want to get him off the wage. And it was a bit of a battle at times. I think Paul Lambert and Theo sort of battling out, wanted him to leave, basically. Yeah. And I think Theo stayed strong, stayed professional.
Well, he's done well now, isn't he?
Did what he did. I think at times he was coming in 3 sessions a day.
Wow.
But he did it with a smile on his face, and I think he got paid up in the end, so good luck to him.
Obviously, it didn't go to plan, as you've said, for you fully. I mean, the team went on to do fantastic things, but it was kind of an injury-driven kind of spell, wasn't it, for you? That must have been tough personally to deal with that.
It was probably not the worst injuries that I've had here at Norwich. I'd had bad injuries before on my knee, and if I'm being honest, when I came to Norwich, I wasn't right. So if I go through it quickly, first breakthrough season at Swansea, no problem. Surgery at the end of that first season, didn't go to plan. Then had another surgery over in America, and I wasn't the same after that, basically. So I was a box-to-box midfielder, energy, win the ball back. By the time I'd come back, I couldn't really run. The term his legs had gone, mine had gone early 20s really, so I had to try and adapt my game.
You did have a good agent, didn't you?
I did have a very good agent. But that loan spell at Swindon was crucial for me, because it meant I played, I think, 11 games at the end of the season, and it proved to people like Norwich that I could play consecutive games. But when I came, I would have trouble. My knee was always sore. I remember it wasn't Paul Lambert's first game, but he was in the crowd at Brentford, and he was watching on what he was taking over the day he was announced as manager. And we were poor. We got beat 2-1. I did score a triple deflected free kick.
They all count. They all count.
But I remember trying to pass. I tried to pass the ball with my left one, so all my weight on my right, and my right leg would just give way. I was in trouble, but I'd always felt. Why do I always have the bad luck to get big injuries where I'm out for 3-4 months? Why can't I get just one of those 3-weekers or something? And that's what I got in Norwich. So I came, Lambert's first day was a tough day. He worked as hard. And I tore my calf at the end of that session. Didn't think it was that bad.
Wow.
And then we played Sunderland. It wasn't in his first game against Wickham, but then started against Sunderland in the Cup. We were Premier League at the time. With this calf that just got worse and worse. Played the full 90. And that ended up in me being out for 6 weeks. Came back from that, had trouble with my groin. It was stop-start, and also how well the team was doing. It was hard. I could never knock on his door and say, why am I not playing, Gaffer? Because the team are doing so well.
And Chris, we mentioned it sort of before we came on, us two, but we've got a similar situation with Matt Jarvis at the moment. It's so frustrating with fans. We see the potential there. What we don't see is the ins and outs in the treatment room every day. It's obviously much more frustrating for the player, but it's a tough one, isn't it, when players are just picking up injuries after injuries?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a major blow with Louis Thompson, of course, as well. And Matt Jarvis is the mega frustrating one, mainly because we know that he's on Premier League wages, which is very, very frustrating. But as you said, you don't understand the whole mindset and what it does to the player, and the player can't do anything about it. The player's agent's done all the work. Thanks very much, with all the respect in the world. So yeah, it's hard, and it's frustrating for Norwich, particularly with Matt Jarvis, because we keep bringing it up and laughing about it. That game against Bournemouth in the Premier League, banged in that goal, and we thought, wow, this is an absolute player. And since then, we've seen absolutely diddly squat. What would you do?
Okay, moving on to a bit more up-to-date Norwich stuff. Are you still watching Norwich?
I have a little eye on all my former clubs, really. Result-wise, you obviously then don't get the ins and outs of who's playing. You get almost the highlights, who's doing well, more than anything. So definitely got a keen eye. Still got a couple of friends within the club as well, so you do get that little bit of information. And also working on Radio Cymru, Radio Wales. Generally, I'll cover a Norwich game or two in the season, whether it's Cardiff or Swansea.
Are you doing S4C as well?
Yeah, S4C is more the Welsh Premier League, so it shows the games from the domestic league, and then I'll mix those games on the telly with the radio covering Swansea and Cardiff. Yeah.
Speaking of the Welsh League, very interested to know your opinion on this. I'm sure you'll probably disagree with me. I'm struggling to understand Cardiff and Swansea being in the English league system, but then Celtic and Rangers not.
Yeah.
Am I just not understanding the situation here?
Well, I think the Scottish League was formed so many years ago. The Welsh Domestic League only in 1992.
Okay.
So what you had is any club that played, they would be in the English system. So Cardiff, Swansea would be Bangor, who I played for. And then when it was formed in 92, I think clubs were given the option what they wanted to do. Did they want to come into this league and have the highlight of maybe potentially getting to European football at the end of it, or were they going to remain? And obviously the teams who were doing well, the big clubs, were going to remain because they saw that pathway to staying in the English system and having that success, if you like.
So it's more about the Scottish FA as opposed to the Welsh and the English FA having a thing.
Yeah.
Right, understood.
Yeah. I mean, having played up in Scotland, you see the size on Rangers and Celtic as clubs that I promise you don't realise until you're there that these clubs are huge.
Yeah, no, I've been myself
as big, if not bigger than the majority of the Premier League clubs down south. They would be a huge force to be reckoned with.
Do you think?
If they came down and then were given the income that these Premier League clubs are given, give them 5, 6, 7
years, point.
And they'd be big clubs because they're like institutions, if you like, when you go there, more than just football clubs.
Oh, I know, it's religious.
But obviously, if they left the Scottish League, it would leave their domestic.
But do the Welsh FA not think that about Swansea and Cardiff, having buggered off into the English League? Are they not a bit frustrated that that's not the situation?
I think they'd be frustrated, but more so than buggered off, they were there to begin with.
Sure.
So they started off there.
Okay.
You then have probably there's smaller clubs. There's Colwyn Bay, Merthyr Tydfil, Newport up until recently were non-league in the English system. They were probably the clubs they would have liked to have attracted back more than the bigger ones.
Okay. You've helped my understanding.
Don't underestimate the Welsh Premier League though. TNS on Football Manager. Best save you can do.
Yeah.
Anyway, since we've last spoke, Chris, we've pulled in £35 million worth of money.
Well done, Stuart. Good old boy.
But we have also lost probably 2 of our best players. Madison's gone.
Yeah.
Murphy's gone.
Yeah.
Big money. Will it be reinvested? Are you happy to see them go or not?
Look, I have no hesitation in saying, honestly, I think it's ridiculously impressive to get the amount of money that we got for Josh Murphy. I know he's young. I know he's English, so his fee will go up. But considering his form, and this is with no disrespect to Josh, but I'm surprised that we got that amount for him. And literally, I think Stuart probably sat down and said, well, he looks the same as his brother, so he's got to be worth almost much. You know what? I'll knock $1 million off for you. How about that? I think it's incredible we've got that amount of money. But I think obviously one of the things that we have to always say to fans is we haven't got 30 odd million in the pot now to spend. We have not got that money. I won't, dive in too much, but I was talking to head of finance recently and having a really interesting chat about how it all works. And we have not got a massive amount of money to spend now, so please do not expect Norwich to spend loads of money. And actually, you know what? I kind of don't. Going back to Owain's era at Norwich City, and you think about the type of players that we brought in, it's funny because I feel like we've almost done a full cycle, and now we're back to that. We're back at spending smaller amounts of money, but trying to find better players. I mean, an example is how much money did we spend on Marcel Franco? £3 million. Absolutely terrible. How much did we spend on Tommy Tribal?
It's free, wasn't he? I think
free transfer. Now, to me, that says that this current philosophy, this current system is the right thing to do, and I'm excited to see that. What does this money do? It secures our club 1,000,000%. Really, really worth mentioning that. But for me, I think it gives us the assurance that we can start to build a spine again. I think without the Maddison money, we really struggle to do that. I think, Remy's a top guy, of course. We've got Aston waiting in the wings in the GK position as well. But I think we'll massively miss Angus next season. And I think that money gives us the opportunity to potentially get in a slightly better quality goalkeeper, for example. But for me, I'm still massively concerned about up top. Really concerned. I mean, again, do we take a pot shot and try to gamble and go for a Grant Holt? Or do we spend big money on a Jordan Rhodes? I'm sure we need to talk about that. For me, wrong move. Honestly, wrong move. It could work out, don't get me wrong, but Jordan's record is no better than Nelson Oliveira's of late. So really interested to see how it goes. And currently, I'm in the same position as I was last podcast. I'm not settled. I'm not content. Stuart's got some work to do still, and Steve Stone. They've done a great job of offloading Josh for that amount of money. Brilliant to sell Maddison for that price. Well done. But he was worth that money. And by the way, I wish him all the best. Fantastic guy off the pitch. And I'm so pleased that he's proven my credibility with the supporters.
I mean, it'd be interesting to hear sort of 7 years since you left the club. Premier League football, Championship football, probably nearing on 100 million spent on players. A lot has changed. Where do you see the club now? Do you see it in a prosperous position or almost back to sort of square one?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's probably in a similar position to before I joined the club. Not in that relegation season, but just probably seen as a Championship club. So they finished mid-table last year. Probably just seen as that club who could have a season, a breakout season where they get promoted. They shouldn't be in any danger of being relegated. It's just that not mediocrity. I'm not going to offend them with that type, but you know what I'm getting.
I don't think you'd be offending anyone. I think you'd be bang on.
But you never know. I know that the stick that the manager he's had quite a bit of abuse from fans. I can only speak on what I saw last season. They looked like a side who could be quite flaky. They could be got at, but once they got going, not bad at all. The football that they played against Cardiff twice. I forget the results. You boys will know.
They lost both times, I think, but at times
played some really good stuff.
Cardiff at home was an incredible performance.
Yeah, so you can see, I can see what he's trying to do.
Yeah,
maybe that big investment. If he can invest just a little bit, it might not be him that does it. It might be a director of football, but get players in who can play that brand of football, and you might be onto something, but maybe not.
Really interested to hear. Obviously, of course, you played with the Messiah, the magician himself, Wes Hoolahan, of course. Not at Norwich City anymore. First of all, just a few words on Wes, and also can Norwich replace a player like Wes Hoolahan?
No, I don't think so. I often used to thank. First of all, I used to thank Gunny. If we were on a night out after a promotion, I'd say
after a promotion,
this is to Gunny, because obviously with my wage increase, but it was Holty and Wes that I would thank mainly.
Okay,
because in terms of the boys who ever played in the team were brilliant, but those two were the standouts, and we couldn't have done it without them.
Absolutely.
One for his goals, and Wes just magic, absolutely magic. He's up there with the best that I've played with at club level, definitely. He used to meg me all the time, embarrassing,
No offence, but it doesn't surprise me.
No, do you know what? It didn't offend me. I don't care who made me. Some lads lose their heads and start going crazy, but it happened to me every day. But he was brilliant, and he was out of shape. Lambert had to come in and really get him to pull his weight, really, because he's a brilliant guy, a lively character, good on a night out.
Yeah.
But he needed just that kick up the arse, really, to get his career going, because maybe his career was going nowhere. Because he wanted to leave.
Could have left, yeah.
He wanted to leave. I think at the end of that Colchester game, because he knew Lambert from Livingston, he went up to Lambert and said, how's it going, Wes? And he said, I want to get out of here. Wow. So obviously when Lambert came into the club, he didn't think that Wes wanted to stay, and that's why he was in the youth team to start with.
Is that an exclusive? We need an exclusive button, don't we?
I mean, they're all coming out here.
So Wes and the Doc were with the youth team in Lambert's first initial few weeks. It was only injuries that really... and results not quite going their way meant he had to bring him back in. And
I cannot believe the Doc was in the youth team.
He
was a man. I mean, why didn't he stick him up top with Holty? That's what I say.
He had a couple of weeks with them. And then there was injuries. Who would have played then?
And then they all went out on the piss, so they decided to put Gary Doherty back in the first team.
Yeah, maybe.
Bad influence.
Yeah, I think you had Big Nelson, Jens maybe played a little bit. I think there was someone else that played centre.
Askew. What a man as well.
Yeah, the Big Dane. Crazy guy. Crazy.
Right, let's get on to some Twitter questions. We tweeted out that you're coming on the podcast. A very good reception, actually. And thank you for recommending to get Owain on, because it's been brilliant so far. Now, first of all, this is from Willamotts. Now, Willamotts is a local gardener.
Oh.
He asks questions every week.
Hang on, whoa. He's a sponsor of this podcast.
And a sponsor, of course.
Well done.
The latest photo, I love this. Been using this old beast for the last 32 years. Never let us down. Few leaks here and there, but wouldn't swap her for anything. Look at that for a
little
roller.
What are we looking at here?
Oh, nice.
This is a roller.
Oh, that's a meaty lawnmower.
30 years old.
Nice.
And the legend that is Jez from Bears replied, sounds like my missus.
Goodness gracious.
Anyway, he asked, firstly, fantastic podcast by Owain. Always a great listen. My question is, should every season ticket holder get a free new shirt to wear at matches for a sea of yellow and green with flags and banners? This would fill away teams with fear of playing at Carrow.
Oh, I like his thinking, actually. I do like his thinking. Knowing football clubs these days, it's not going to happen. It might end up being a £2 just normal T-shirt that you can get from anywhere.
We'll take it.
But as long as it's yellow.
Yeah.
I think it's a good shout.
Did you see Carrow as a bit of a fortress when you were playing? Because I think we've lost that a bit over the past few seasons.
Success means there's a little bit more atmosphere. I think is it the Snake Pit? The Snake Pit was bouncing, and probably going back to the Premier League then, as it can happen. I've seen it with Swansea. Is that first season back in the Premier League, back for Norwich, is amazing. If you can make it to the second, yeah, it's quite exciting. By the third, it's just. Not that it's boring, but
you're used to it.
What are
you adjust, you acclimatise.
Well, what are you playing for? Like Swansea have just been relegated. It might end up being a good thing because they go into each season really thinking, let's finish 17th. You're never going to go on that run where you win 3-4 on a bounce. Yeah. Whereas in the Championship at that time it was bouncing.
I actually applaud Swansea, and I'm sick of jealousy with Swansea because they came off, of course, at the same time as Norwich with Southampton, who I'm also very jealous of. But I think Swansea have done a brilliant job of staying in the league as long as they have, to be honest.
Because it was a good model at the club. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. I think so.
It's gone a bit.
Yeah, of course. But at the beginning of the process, I thought they did very well to survive.
They were brilliant. And then the last three have been stagnant, almost waiting to be relegated. You've had a list of them recently, Aston Villa, Sunderland, where they just stay up by the skin of their teeth, and then the next one's a grind. They will eventually drop. It's what happens now.
So has it become stagnant at board level? Or?
Everything.
Wow.
Player-wise, what's happened there is maybe the first half of the season has been terrible, and it looks like they're doomed. So new manager will come in and think, right, am I preparing for next season? All of a sudden, gets that lift off the players. They survive, and then that manager then thinks, oh, maybe they're good enough. Inevitably they will then revert back to type. Not that they're not good players, it's just collectively it needs a revamp.
Yeah, interesting. I'm going to leave the last word off this question from Chris Jones. Do you know Chris?
Swearing, is he?
No, he's not swearing.
This is.
Did Delia Smith ever cook you some beef?
Oh, some beef. I saw that question on Twitter. I know the word.
Just say it. Go on.
Some beef curtains.
Oh, bloody hell. Delia, I only met her a couple of times, Delia. Everything was very professional.
Good.
We had, under Gunny, before that season started, maybe this is why we lost 7-1, we had a nice barbecue the week before.
Did you?
Was it the week before? Week before, up at Colney, had a nice barbecue. Delia was there. So it was nice, good for team spirit. Maybe not on the pitch, but we got to know each other pretty well. I didn't have much dealing initially because I was Welsh. So I think Michael has been Welsh. So, that was the icebreaker in terms of the conversation. But after that...
That was how the agent got you in, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah.
Owain Jones, Welsh.
It must have been. It must have been. Good for him.
So you spent all of this time at Norwich, but Delia never cooked for you?
No.
She doesn't cook for any... We ask this to every ex-player.
Yeah,
no, she doesn't.
She should do.
I agree. But we also think Delia should come on this podcast if she hasn't done it yet.
And the invite is still there. Stan asks, Ipswich or Norwich to finish higher next season?
Right, hang on. Before you answer this question, if you say Ipswich, I'm honestly going to finish this and you're out.
Yeah, there's only one answer really I can give, isn't there? But without knowing the exact squad that Ipswich have got at the moment, I'll go Norwich because it always seems...
Good man.
They seem to crumble, don't they? The derby games especially, their record's been terrible recently. Norwich they are the example of just a championship team. Never up, never down. And that's hopefully what Norwich don't want to become over the next few years.
Definitely.
Keep stabbing, go on.
Bristol Rovers Polls, who I'm surprised still watches us. He's still going every week in, week out. Thank you to Bristol Rovers Polls. He asks, what player are you most excited about in the future for the Wales national team?
There's not only one. There's a handful coming up, and you hope that they go on to have good careers. But Ethan Ampadu, who was at Chelsea, signed for Chelsea from Exeter, 17 years old, joined up with the squad to start with before the European campaign.
Yeah.
Was just involved in the squad, and he had to leave then to go and do his GCSEs.
Wow.
And apparently, from the lads that I speak to, he was bossing people around, which is different for these days. Young players, not many of them talk. Not many of them are talkers on the pitch. And then he's gone on to have his first couple of caps. Came on against France, over in France. Started against Panama. His range of passing, scary, and you can just see him organising the senior lads around him, shouting at Ashley Williams where to be.
Wow.
Looks a really outstanding player.
If you were an Ashley Williams, what are you making of this young kid on the block coming in and bossing people around?
No problem, I don't think.
No?
He can play both at the moment. People back home in Wales are torn. Is he going to be a centre midfield player or centre half? I think over time, probably a centre half, an outstanding one. But the games he's played in centre midfield, I promise you, for a 17-year-old, his passing is scary. He looks an outstanding. And think of the money that Chelsea spend on their youth players from all over the world.
Very, very
and he's
true.
been the one that's gone in first season, coming on as a sub in games. He looked good.
Oh, Stuart Webber, maybe take that one on board. George Crisp, best player you've ever played against?
Ooh, good question, George.
Best player I've played against is Thiago, who plays for Bayern Munich.
Oh, wow.
Now. Saw him come on for Spain the start of this World Cup. Played against him for Swansea. We went over to Spain for a pre-season tour. We had, I think, 4 games in 5 days under Roberto, but it was like structured. We'd have maybe everyone would play half an hour.
Right.
Everyone would play 45 minutes each for the first 2, and then you'd swap. Someone would play 60 and 30. So that was the 4th game against Barcelona B. 4th game, I was knackered. And we played in the first half team. Good team, right? I can remember it now. Ash was playing in the back with Gary Monk. Who else would have been playing? Jordi Gomez, do you remember him?
Yeah.
Ferry Boda, myself. Darren Pratley maybe playing. And we were 3-0 down.
Team.
It reminded me of my Norwich debut, actually. 3-0 down after 20 minutes. And Thiago... He's megging me from 15 yards. He's giving me the eyes every time he got the ball. He's looking over there, pretending to pass. I'm running and the ball's over there. Just made me look stupid. Unbelievable talent.
Best player you played with?
I say Gareth Bale is an easy one, really. But
I was going to say Gareth Bale FC.
Training for Wales, the majority of the time, he'd obviously be in the team set to start a game, and then the rest of us would fill in to prepare the starting boys. And I'd get filled in centre half, right back, wherever. And often I was right back. And even though he was left back, he was an attacking left back. And you're talking, I would start jockeying when he was 20 yards away, and he'd still absolutely burn me for pace. He was brilliant. And then club level, Wes is definitely up there, and probably little Leon Britton at Swansea as well.
Yeah, good players. Love this question coming in from Chris Nicholas. He asks, who's your favourite other Jones? Tom Jones, Simon Jones, Michael Wynne Jones, or Alec Jones?
Oh, that's a tough one, isn't it? Tough one.
Some good Joneses in there.
I've got the connection with Simon Jones. We both had surgery over in America with Dr. Richard Stedman.
Right.
That is so random.
But you've got to go Tom, haven't you?
Yeah, legend.
Sorry, Michael, but it's Tom.
My mum loves Tom Jones.
Obviously.
On another level.
As do all the Welsh ladies.
Indeed, yeah. Now this is we're going to get onto this. Chris Louis asks, would you be content with only signing Jordan Rhodes? He's clearly confident that we are signing him. I'm not so sure. Do you feel that we need another European striker? So first of all, Jordan Rhodes.
I don't think it's about having a European striker. I just think that it needs to be a player that fits into our system, and I would say that saying that Jordan Rhodes fits into our system is debatable. Look, from what I've heard and what I believe to be true is that this is his agent trying to push through this move. I can't see, unless the finances suit Norwich City perfectly, because we're not in that stupid gambling position that we are in under David McNally anymore. It's all about safety and security for the future and building from the bottom up. I can't see us paying Jordan Rhodes wages at all. I would be surprised if it goes over the line. But for me, it's someone that fits into the system. It's as simple as that. And obviously that's why Mo Leitner has joined, of course, because the finances are not in our favour. No, not yet. No. God, dear oh dear.
This is a nice question from Elizabeth Howlett. Big fan of both of your podcasts. Thank you, Elizabeth. To both of you, who would be your dream guest to get on to interview? Start with you, Owen.
Yours is Gareth Bale, isn't it?
No.
Really?
In terms of getting listeners, you boys know, I think podcasting is an intriguing world, and I love trying to find out how do you keep growing. It's like you almost need that cult following to start with, that loyal bunch of supporters, and then slowly word of mouth spreads around. So for that to happen, if I got a Gareth Bale, obviously that would be brilliant, because you'd get loads
if he
of
shares it
people
on Twitter, of course.
Absolutely. If we take that equation out of it, Chris Coleman's on the list.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah,
back home in Wales, not many people have heard of him since he left. You know, he left not under a cloud, but it was a big surprise at the time. Went to Sunderland, thought that he could be the man who turned them around, and just didn't go to plan. So he's now ended up in China, which is making it difficult for me to get him on the podcast. But he's on the list.
What? Just fly to China.
He's on the. Hey,
you got here, so fly out there.
Once we're off air, boys, I'm going to be asking you about sponsorship. That gardener, what was his name?
Willamot.
Come on, Willamot. Pay for me to go to China to interview Chris Coleman.
What about a sort of a big character that you've maybe played with that you could really kind of get some stories out of?
Who would it be? It's hard to start with. First of all, getting people on.
Yeah.
That's the most difficult thing that I find, because I don't like pestering people. Yeah. And if you want someone on your podcast, you boys know.
Guilty.
Yeah, you sometimes have to pester people. So I'm slowly getting around to that, thinking, I've had a few experiences. I asked someone, do you want to come on the podcast? Yeah, Brit, yeah, no problem. They don't know what a podcast is, really. And then when it comes to the crunch, do you want to do a podcast next week? They don't answer. Yeah. You think, oh my God.
We were quite smooth with you, really.
No problem. No problem. You could have been worse.
But then you guys helped us out, so thank you for that.
So, who could you have? But what I'm trying to explain is, some people don't know what a podcast is. It's only after you do it with them that they say, oh, I enjoyed that. Because all it is feeding their ego, basically. My job is to make them feel comfortable. Maybe the first 5 minutes a little bit stiff. Get them out of that interview process, you know. So I'm going around this. This is a long answer, this, isn't it?
You think we'll go?
Character? If I could get, Matty Gill, who I'm here in Norwich, I'm staying in his house.
Oh, he could talk about Darren Huckabee. That would be.
I think you boys, as fans, you've seen the stiff side of Gilly, and obviously he's the under-23s manager now, so he's got to be professional and this and that. If we could get the Gilly from the nights out that I remember,
the Mercy nights out,
what a beauty!
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we all go out down Prince of Wales this week?
Yeah.
Get Gilly on the shot.
Oh,
interest!
Beautiful.
We'll get it going.
I'm sure Stuart Webber wouldn't be too.
Nah, he's doing a good job, by the way. Not just because he's my mate. doing good things as the 23s manager. So
now, before you answer what your dream guest would be, Elizabeth, who asked the question, her dream guest would be Robert Chase. That's a big name, isn't it?
Very interesting, very controversial.
Story.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Who'd yours be?
I think. Well, we have a goal, don't we, Jack? That we're going to get Delia on the podcast. She'll come on one day.
She'll cook us some beef curtains.
But to be honest with you, I mean, God, I don't want to be going anywhere near that. Anyway, God, she's definitely not coming on anymore, is she? I think we've actually had some pretty hardcore guests, haven't we? I mean, Owain's obviously the best, of course.
So what have you had? Angus and Russ.
Yeah.
Hux.
Main two, Hux.
Hux was good.
Yeah.
The mighty Michael Bailey.
Simon Lappin.
King of Spain, what a guy.
You know I'd love to get on?
Gary Doherty, I've got so much interest in the doc.
You can ask the doc about how he...
if we did it in a pub.
Gets all his washing done in the dry cleaners, so he doesn't... I don't think at the time he didn't use a washing machine. I think he used to take his socks to the dry cleaners and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if you've got the money,
True
then...
story, that.
Fair play.
I've got it. Wolverine.
Oh, what's his face?
Wolverine.
Yeah.
Interest.
Yeah.
Big name.
I'd love to get McNally on.
Really?
Just for some stories. Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'd love it.
I don't think you'd get him in a room with me.
No.
He hates me with a burning
Might just be
passion.
me and David.
Doesn't
Yeah.
like it.
No.
Doesn't like
I don't blame him either,
I
to be
don't think
honest.
he likes many people.
No, probably
There we go.
not. Swiftly moving on. John Devine Gay. Now, this is the big question. Do you agree there's been a direct correlation between changing the Caro pies from Delia's own to pucker pies and the quality of football we've been subject to over the past few
Great question.
seasons?
I didn't know this had been happening.
Oh, this is
behind
big
the scenes.
controversy, eh?
It's a disgrace, if I'm being honest.
It is.
That's all I've got to say on the
I mean, a
matter.
pucker pie, standard, isn't it?
I tell you what it reminds me of. I like a bit of hiking. I like getting up the mountains.
Yeah.
On my doorstep in Wales.
That doesn't surprise me.
There's not a coffee shop. There's a cafe at the top of Snowdon, right, which actually attracts some idiots who think it's easy to walk a mountain, so they go sometimes in their flip-flops.
Right.
Anyway, that's another story. But the cafe at the top of Snowdon now serves like generic drinks.
Oh.
So you know, like a cup of tea or a hot chocolate, you got to peel the foil off the bottom.
Oh God, we've gone there, have we?
I just think they've sold
Norwich
out.
have done that, of course.
Yeah.
We had the peelable coffees.
Sellouts.
I mean, if you're climbing a mountain, you don't expect to be served a crap coffee, do you?
You just want something a bit homely, you know,
Yeah.
even if it comes down to the cake. So it's like a pie that you'd get in a football game, and that disappoints me.
Absolutely. I agree. Disgusting.
What is your go-to pie filling?
Do you know, I'm not a huge pie fan. As I've got older, a pie would be bottom of the list, really. I'd go cheeseburger, I'd go hot dog, no question before a pie.
Did you eat all the pies at Norwich?
No.
Who ate all the pies at Norwich, by the way? Go on. Who ate all the pies at Norwich?
It was a bit heavy. Holt used to get a bit of stick,
Oh.
especially off Swansea fans, but he used to love it. He used to love getting that stick.
Yeah. Improved his game massively.
I mean, Semi was a big boy, but not on the pies. He was just a big, strong boy. Loved the weights, you know. But yeah, not a huge pie fan.
Interesting. And you're now a keen golfer as well, aren't you? Or you always have been?
Always have been, especially when I was at Norwich. And this is genuinely...
Is that why you're injured all the time?
No, actually, it was what took my mind off
Yeah.
injuries. So if you're not playing, I'd get injured, I'd come back, wouldn't be involved in squads. And that was what really took my focus, gave me something else, you know. So I played some great golf here at Norwich.
Favourite course?
Well, we played quite often at Weston Park, and never paid once. Gilly was a member, so he used to get me on. Good for him. So he used to pay this big fee, and I used to just jump on. And then went up to Scotland and got spoilt with golf courses.
Yeah.
I've had 3 years with nothing, and getting back into it now.
Beautiful. Played Royal Porthcawl?
I've never played Royal Porthcawl. I think I would love to play it. They're quite stuck up there, actually. Quite stuck up, you know.
It's all about carnage.
It's only these posh ones who get on Porthcawl.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on, mate. It's been a genuine pleasure. Any last words to the Norwich faithful?
Oh, I've got something. I just need to interrupt.
Go on.
Go and check out this podcast.
Yeah, by the way,
Go and check out this podcast.
Links in the description. I
Absolutely.
mean, what's been your highlight in terms of the former Norwich players?
Lots of Norwich players on this podcast.
If you've got to sell it in a minute,
Mm-hmm.
no, actually 30 seconds, you're better than a minute. How would you sell it to the people? Look down that lens and sell it to the fans.
So, The Longman's Football World podcast. You got the name wrong earlier. You said Longman's World Football, something ridiculous. Anyway, we won't go into that. I've tried to give it a bit of a Norwich mix, bringing my own contacts. So Gunny, Paul McVeigh, who else have I got?
Forbesy,
Darren Huckabee. And it's just trying to get them to relax, trying to give a different sort of interview to what everyone's used to. So that's the beauty of it. Hopefully more Norwich people to come. Russell Martin, he's on the list. I'll get Gilly on there as well, maybe together. And,
wow.
Maybe we'll get Wes, but Wes reminds me of... Who's the characters on Mike Bassett, who always agree with everything.
Yeah.
I think if you got... I mean, congratulations if you get Wes on. Congratulations.
Yeah. Wes,
you'll have to pay... I think you'll have to pay him a fair bit.
I'm paying Wes nothing. I pay nobody. No chance.
You can after you contract in Norwich.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's all. That's gone, mate. That's gone. That's why I'm doing stuff like this now, isn't it? Yeah, times are hard. But the Longman's Football World podcast, yeah.
Top man. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Top man.
Cheers.